they'll never go away. So at some point, if people say, do you have anything on it like this, I can point them up. So
if someone says you had to be there, we can also say you can catch the Vimeo video.
exactly. Yeah. It's funny, nobody actually films the entire Blossom Festival parade. And I was talking to I'm sorry, but anyway, I was talking to Jen Huscroft. She said that what they desperately need is promotional materials like that to make it sparkle. So they maybe next year I'll bow out and just take pictures of the entire thing. So A to Z, it's everybody in there. Because right now it's just haphazard.
I think we have to work very hard in keeping the parade together because it sure will spread out.
A lot of comments like that. Is it over? I'm in the wrong place.
Councillor Dumas.
May 14th, I attended the Creston Valley Regional Airport Society, and then the weekend of the 19th Blossom Festival, and attended the powwow. That was great. I really appreciate Councillor Baldwin's video that we were able to. I didn't ask your permission, but I put it online.
How many views?
3,000.
Wow.
It's impressive. And and then the Staking Park rededication this afternoon was lovely. The Creston Valley Seniors Association did a great job.
Councillor Eisler.
Valley Housing Society on May 13th. All the Blossom Festival things, powwow. Got to lead the children's parade, which was just a blast. Every year.
Yeah, you did an awesome
so
job.
fun. And Staking Park hitting.
Councillor Hall.
On May 14th, I attended the Creston Valley Chamber meeting and the Blossom Festival events. Missed out on the powwow. Two children.
We got your email.
So sad.
Councillor Hodgman, anything to add?
Yeah, I do. Hello, everyone. On May 14th, I participated in the Joint Resource Recovery Committee, and it was an interesting meeting. You can read, kind of the follow through of that, but a lot of talk about the Otashina landfill and the situation with the ostrich farm. And then, of course, activities, May 17th with the Blossom Festival, and attended the powwow with with Councillor Aries and her family on the 17th as well. That's it.
Thank you, everyone, for your reports. I will request a motion that the verbal and written reports of council be received. Councillor Dumas, seconded Councillor Aries. All in favor? Motion is carried. And I think for people's attention, there's the RDCK board highlights there. And we will move on to a notice of motion from Councillor Aries. And so I'd like you to read the motion, Councillor Aries.
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to bring forward June as Pride Month. It's a reminder of the importance of diversity and inclusion and the ongoing efforts needed in our community to advocate for equity and justice. So with that, I'll read the motion. Whereas Pride Month is celebrated every June worldwide to commemorate the eventful moments in the fight for equitable and inclusive spaces, laws, and policies for LGBTQ2IA+ individuals, and whereas Pride Month further raises awarenesses to LGBTQIA+ lived experiences and raises awareness and understanding of the community while promoting equity, inclusivity, and greater acceptance of diversity. Therefore, be it resolved that Council for the Town of Creston proclaims June 2025 as Pride Month and invites residents to embrace and celebrate diversity and inclusivity in our beautiful community.
Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Eisler. Any discussion on the motion?
I was wondering if we were going to do a flag.
Yeah.
Again this year.
So when we pass the motion now, we will request from staff to put the flag up.
Sure. Yeah, great.
Okay. So to read that, all in favor? Motion is carried. And with that, we had a pride flag on Town Hall last year for the month of June. So we will request that staff put the pride flag up again for this month of June. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Aries. So we will then move to Committee of the Whole by a motion that Council resolves itself into Committee of the Whole. Motion 2, Councillor Eisler, seconded Councillor Houghton. All in favor? Motion is carried. And we have a delegation by Mark Wolf regarding the Bleeding Tree Film Festival. Mark, here's the podium. You're welcome to come forward.
We actually filmed the entire Blossom Festival Parade was, but it was back in 2017, maybe. We still have that available.
We can do it before and after.
Yeah. So as you probably recall, the town of Creston enabled us to hold our second annual Bleeding Tree International Film Festival here in May, and thanks for that. That was a meaningful contribution, comprised about 25% of our funding budget. That's over and above the revenues from film submissions and the gate at the Tivoli, et cetera, et cetera. But I only have 5 slides. I'll be very quick. This just is most of this is from our website, which is bleedingtree.ca. If anybody is interested, some of the stuff that's coming up will be a little small to see, but you can look at it again on the website. One of the things that we were really proud of was the ease with which we were able to get partners in Creston to participate, whether it's providing discounts on meals or putting out a special entree item or what have you. So that was a success. Where am I clicking? I am clicking. There we go. So we just briefly, we had over 100 international and Canadian submissions. We eventually showed 15. That's pretty typical for a 2-evening showing, mostly short films, 20 minutes or less. One was even 1 minute long. It was outstanding, actually. And as I said, they were, once again, like last year, they were quite exceptional. We also showed a local documentary that Carrie and I produced on Lynn Carrie McKenna's journey through skin cancer. And that was well received on the second evening as well. The real highlight of the festival was the exceptionally strong slate of speakers that we were able to attract from across North America, actually. And that they were able to hold sessions and panels and Q&A sessions and talk about their expertise. We had 2 instructors from major film schools in the region, one out of Kelowna and Bow Valley and Calgary. In fact, Bow Valley actually provided the funds for the Best Student Film Award that we were able to do this year. As a special kind of an event, we had the 2 lead characters from a film called Skinamarink, which some of you may have seen or heard of. That was Variety Magazine's 2024 top horror film in the world that was shot in Edmonton. And so those folks were able to come down and actually put on a special showing of the film at the Goldney Pub Friday night, kind of all on their own ticket. So that was kind of nice. Attendee feedback was extremely positive, and quite notably, I mean, people saying, never been to Creston before. Why didn't somebody tell me about Creston? You know, they were really blown away by just the charm of the place. It helped that we had the Creston Hotel partnering in with us as well. So right across the street from the theater, people found that really handy, but also just expose them to Main Street, and they just loved it. Again, you're not going to be able to read this. These are just some testimonials from some of the people who attended, speakers and filmmakers. If you go to our website, you'll see a whole bunch more. But what's really interesting is the number of people who attended this year, either as filmmakers or as speakers at our events, were saying that they would like to come back next year. That's a bit unusual. Usually people are glad when a festival's over and they go back home, but they're interested in coming back. It wasn't a AAA hit. We were a little light on attendance, but not really, if you consider that this is the first time it was being held in Creston, a smaller town. But even still, we got more in Creston than we did last year in Cranbrook. Over the 2 years, a city 3 times the size, right? And we had more media coverage as well in Cranbrook last year. So we still consider it a win and a good solid core of people interested in films. We had some people come up to us later and say, you know, I was a little leery about the film festival because it has sort of a dark drama theme to it. But she said, you know, it was really interesting. It comfortably took me out of my comfort zone. So they found it just a rewarding experience. We had a particularly strong showing by student filmmakers, including the two students from Kootenai River High School here who attended the full day of speaker events. So that was kind of encouraging. The young filmmaker from Toronto who won the best student film award, Lauren Eden, had never been to British Columbia before.
Really?
So she was just in awe of the mountains. She said, flying over the mountains, incredible. She couldn't stop talking about it. So she is one that would definitely come back if there was a residency or something else that we do, going forward. And so just on that note, so there were a number of key learnings or key focus areas that emerged for us in through the speaker sessions and just through the experience of the whole thing. And that was the interest by young people in particular to come back and continue, either attend or to actually shoot films here or to create a production facility or, who knows, right? So we kind of, in our report back to Creative BC, we called it Infuse, Inspire, and Ignite, because I think that was the impact of the festival. And those pretty strong words. We didn't expect it would land quite that effectively, but we were extremely pleased with the outcome. So thank you once again for your support. I'll take any questions or comments, but it is significant to say that we held this, and Carrie and I launched this last August in Cranbrook. It was sort of let's sort of see what happens, see if anybody comes, right? Well, then we got these incredible films, extremely high quality. So we were encouraged to do it again. And the experience, I think, from this festival is it's gone to another level. Mm-hmm. And it sort of sets the stage for expansion of the festival going forward. One of the things we would do for sure is maybe add a day or even two to the festival, a day on either side, so that people coming from out of town, in particular from Los Angeles or wherever they're coming from, can take that time to go to Bailey Gorman or to go out to Sutcliffe Farms or go to Nelson even. Did I say that out loud? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thank you again. It was a success.
Councillor Baldwin.
Two questions. One is, have you talked to College of the Rockies? You were talking about a residency or a production facility or anything like that. Obviously, having this bricks and mortar location without you having to do that, would they be interested?
Yeah, we reached out to the one film instructor that's there. They don't really have a film program, but as it turns out, Jeff Clements, who was one of the speakers, he's the associate dean of their performing arts program at Bow Valley in Calgary. And their president, I think it was their president or somebody else high up in their administration that's now moving in as the president of Cranbrook. And so there was an immediate connection that we have to talk. So we definitely will be reaching out to College of the Rockies. We had reached out to Selkirk. Didn't get much traction there at all. Doesn't mean we can't try again. And I think in having sort of set the stage and proved this
credibility is there. Yeah. So then what's next for next year?
Well, just that. Next. I think we would do the same thing, same kind of partnerships with the business community, with the hotel, with the theater. But like I said, I think we would expand it out and put a couple more days to the festival, maybe spread the showings out and just make it more of a 4-day event as opposed to a lot of people came in for the one night, right? We were either working on Friday, so they had to come Saturday, and then leave again Sunday. But we would sort of sell the festival as a longer event.
And it will always be dark theater. Is that the
dark drama? Dark drama, sorry. Yeah, we're kind of branded that way. We feel that's an interesting subgenre of psychological thriller, or it can have horror elements, but really it's about people with trauma or some kind of tragedy or some kind of circumstance that takes them to a dark place in which they have to find a way out of that. We actually had the Canadian Mental Health Association also participate this year. So they came down with a table full of brochures and assistance kind of connections and stuff. So they recognized it as an event that they could support. So we would look for, to expand out some of those some of those corporate connections, I think.
Well, the comments were on the agenda and they were very positive comments from people from far away, which was quite
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah.
I was happy to see that. So, yeah, I think we all look forward to next year.
Good.
What I particularly look forward to is someday having the Skimmerhorns as a backdrop for one of these dark movies, and including The Devil's Chair, which is on there.
Oh, cool.
Because the Skimmerhorns have always been a spectacular backdrop. I've never seen them in film, and I think that would certainly be an interesting part of a film, that impenetrable cliff.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we did in our feature film, The Orchard, we had one scene that it was the Skimmerhorns just really at full
Yeah.
view.
Yeah.
And our production company is called Skimmerhorn Production.
It's your first.
no one's forgotten about it.
Yeah.
Thanks for your information.
Great.
And again, thanks for doing this, Frank.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you, Mark.
and thank you for the help.
Okay, so we will go on to our business, and first, that the committee of the whole receives the delegation from Mark Wolf of Skimmerhorn Productions regarding Bleeding Tree Film Festival. Councillor Eisler, seconded Councillor Carries. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll go on then to council direction requests from the Director of Community Services regarding the closed booking requests from Rotary.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll discuss this. Our community services staff are not here today. So this is just a really sort of the introductory of a bigger decision that has to be made for requests for decision. But so there has been a request from the Creston Valley Rotary Club for doing a private booking for August 16, 2025 for a beer fest. And so there's a number of things that are going that need to be done. Is first off, there needs to be approval for the provincial special event permit. There's a request for an increase of the park capacity from 250 to 400 people. That's outlined in our parks and public spaces booking policy. And then also they're seeking council sponsorship in the amount of $300, which is the closed booking fee. So really, I guess this is just the first introductory because it takes a bit of work. And so if there's like a definitive no before staff starts putting in a bunch of time, that's partly why you get this report at this level. There's no real approval to be asked at this point in time, but really more of a just a discussion if there's any other additional requirements that council wishes to have, or if there's any concerns, then staff can certainly address that with the applicant. So this would be just really asking if there's if they're supportive of the event in itself, and that will allow the applicant to apply for the required special event permits. And I guess additionally, whether or not council is willing to consider sponsoring the event.
Any questions? Councillor Baldwin?
What incrementally has changed since last year? I think the fence is larger, if I recall. I was just actually trying to take a look here. I don't think anything other than the event size. I think we are a little bit larger in size. But the time frame and everything is the same. I think it's relatively the same. I think we were from the council report history. It doesn't have the date on there, but we were asking probably last spring for the same, or about this time last year. So.
The only question I have is, so we're increasing from 250 to 400 people. Does that mean technically someone's counting and at 400 we close the gates, or what does that exactly mean?
Well, that would be up to the operator. They have to actually have the capacity. So it's partly tied to their licensing. So we have a public or private booking amount, or we have a maximum of 250 for a private booking. I'm not sure what that's based on, because certainly the size out there, you certainly could hold more than 250 people. It's not like that's really the issue. So at some point in time, we just established that. Now through policy, we can increase the size just with approval by the director or myself. But when you add a liquor license to it, that's where it starts. Council has to approve the special events licenses when you get to that size. So it's kind of a mix to that.
So in terms of, the size, the amount of people that can attend is going to be dictated by the liquor license, and the holders of the liquor licenses must comply with that. So how they choose to comply with it, that'll be all part of their safety plan that they have to present to the, liquor control board. And it's not as much of a concern for council as.
Okay, thanks. Seeing no other questions, and I would request a motion that council receives the May 27, 2025 council direction request titled Closed Park Booking Request Millennium Park for information, and further that council direct staff to prepare a request for decision regarding the park's booking request at an upcoming council meeting. Councilor.
We're in just-
Oh, sorry.
We voted on the last one.
Right?
Nobody would complain.
Yeah, let's not vote.
That's right.
Not our heads.
Yeah.
Okay? We all agree with the recommendation. And I'll be very careful with the next one to keep it as a recommendation.
Mhm.
So the next one is council direction request from the Director of Community Services regarding street closure requests for cars in the Coots.
Yeah, so again, this is just a introduction to the request. I was just actually looking to see if this was done last year as well. I don't think it was, or not by this group. So anyways, Cars in the Coots Car Show would like to have Canyon Street closed from 16th Avenue North to 10th Avenue North on June 15th for the annual Creston Valley Car Show. Traditionally, it used to be, I think, on the Monday of Blossom Fest, and I'm not quite sure. I think, since the pandemic, a number of things have sort of separated and changed. So I don't know what was, you remember if they did this last year?
We did do it last year. Some of our policies have changed slightly. So there's a few additional requirements that they have to meet to be able to close off the street. So they do have approval from MODI at this time. And it's just pending council's approval. So there's sort of two aspects of it. One is they're looking for a special event permit that would look at this year, but also the next 5 years, so they don't have to keep coming back. So that's one piece of it. And the other piece, they're just filling their policy requirements right now. So they need to notify the affected owners on Canyon Street that they're planning on doing this. And then they also need to come up with a special event outdoor fire and emergency safety plan. So the Director of Protective Services is working on that piece with them to try and support them in this event if council's in favor of it. So there's sort of two pieces of their application. One is this year specifically, and one is looking if we would like to support it for the 5-year piece. Every year they would have to go through the process of notifying the businesses on Canyon Street and coming up with a safety plan.
So in the 5-year plan, are they planning to align it again with Blossom Festival, or is that sticking
We have to keep it on Father's Day.
Okay.
They find that it's just a great day. People come down, they bring their dads. Yeah.
Spread out the entertainment.
Spread out the entertainment.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions from anybody else? Okay, I'll read the recommendation. That council receives the May 27th, 2025 council direction request titled Street Closure Request Cars in the Coots Car Show for information, and further that council directs staff to prepare a request for decision regarding the street closure request for council decision at an upcoming meeting. We're all in agreement? Okay, thank you. Now we'll go to the council direction request from the Director of Corporate Services regarding the results of the municipal reclassification survey.
Great, thank you, Your Worship. So we started this conversation in 2024 and kind of brought it all down the line. So the last direction we received from council was to go out for a public survey to solicit feedback on what the community felt about a municipal redesignation. So the survey was available on Let's Talk Creston, as well as we did a paper survey that was mailed out to all households in Creston between April 9th and May 9th. And in that time, we had pretty good turnout of respondents. There were 218 survey respondents. 61.9% or 135 respondents indicated no. 24.8 or 54 respondents indicated yes. 11.9, so 26 respondents indicated unsure. And 1.4%, 3 respondents indicated that they had no opinion. There were 3 open-ended follow-up questions to the survey. So the first was, if you answered yes to the previous question, why do you support Creston becoming a city? And the responses really focused around opportunities for growth, business and resident attraction, improved public services, supporting the local economy, encouraging professionals to relocate, and the potential for more grant funding. The next question was if they had answered no to the previous question, what concerns do you have about Creston becoming a city? And the comments there really focused on an expanding population leading to crime and other perceived urban problems, not wanting to lose the small town feel of Creston, which I think was really the prevalent piece that came through, is that close-knit feeling that didn't want that to be dissolved. And then some fear around increased taxes, but as a point of clarification, municipal classification and taxes are not linked. There's no change to council when that happens, and there's no increase in legislative responsibilities that council would have to take on as a result of being a city, as well as just a lack of land for industrial development. And then we had a final question in case there were people that had other sorts of information, but what we found in those responses of the comments were really just a blend of the previous comments that they had written before, if not exactly the same. So really at this point, the survey was intended to be a preliminary activity so that council could make a next decision. Any reclassification process ultimately has to be directed by council. Then we notify the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and they focus us towards a First Nations referral process. And then at that time, once all that goes through, we move to a formal elector assent process. So likely for us, an alternative approval process, which is essentially a counter petition process of if you are in opposition to it, you fill out a ballot. If 10% of your voters pursuant to your provincial voters list end up being an objection to it, it might get defeated there unless you move it on to a referendum. My recommendation in the staff report that's in front of you is based on the survey that we don't take any further action. You had 61.9% of respondents who were concerned. Having said that, it is a great opportunity and one of those things that you build on. So a really key factor that we tried to communicate is when you make a change, it takes time for those changes to take effect. So a lot of the economic development impacts that we may feel would be a building block on that for the future. So I will leave that to you.
Councillor Eisler.
One of the things that I thought was when I was looking at the survey is that it said that we, potential for more grant funding. And I think that would change people's perception if we were like, this opens us up, this.
Yeah. It's hard to be really definitive with that. So from other folks' experience, other municipalities that have gone through it, when provincial and federal bodies look at granting, they really try to focus where it would go and have the most amount of impact. So part of changing to that city is also acknowledging that we are growing, that we are an economic hub for the outside area, and we do benefit a wider community than just the town of Creston. So, but without, it would take time to realize that, it would take time for us to get there. So potential, yeah. But yes, I agree that those perceived was,
Okay.
Councillor Houghton.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I thought the feedback, I think, gives us a general idea of perceptions that people have around taxation. And maybe next year when we put out our budget information for the public, it wouldn't hurt. Like there were lots of comments around if we become a city, our taxes are going to increase because of that designation. And so I know there's information there, but maybe a bit more clarifying information is needed because those comments, they filtered through, were prominent in many of the responses. And I also just, again, thank you, Councillor Eisler, for talking about availability of grants based on being a city. That's another point where I think maybe we can do some clarification with the community on how we apply for grants and what we consider and why we qualify for the grants that we apply for. That's it. Thank you.
Councillor Baldwin.
Talked about a little bit before the meeting. I see this as being a great opportunity to reinforce the process. I mean, we went out, we asked people, this wasn't a referendum. It wasn't the biggest number was going to win or anything like that. It was, what are your thoughts? We really need that. You know, are we on the right track? And clearly, this is not probably the right time to push this at this point. We do need to quickly respond to everyone, that this process was very helpful to us. And it basically lets us take some time. You know, there is not a time limit to do this, but there is also an opportunity to do a better job of clarifying what it would mean and why we could do it now or we could do it 20 years from now. But I think we really need to go, this was great. Getting 218 people who felt one way or the other, fantastic. It's not about the actual percentages other than, order of magnitude. Yes, more people are at the moment are opposed to it. It just means we have to do a better job of really explaining the implications of it. But the thing that I mentioned before the meeting is that something that resonated for me in all of that stuff was the love of Creston as a town. And the vision for me is to say, no matter what, if we have a dream of a city and we have the numbers to be a city, but we are a town by nature. And that town by nature just kept coming back to me, is that maybe that's the message we tell now, because we just basically acknowledged everybody's positions, feelings, without polarizing it. I think we all agree that, if we had nothing else to say, we'd want a Creston to be like low key and, easygoing and all that kind of stuff. But if it's inevitable that we become a city, now's the time to position that we're sympathetic, we're empathetic, all that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't leave this for months or weeks or anything like that. I would say it was great. Council is convinced that, we're on the right track long term, but there's still work that we have to do. So maybe in a year or two, we'll come back to you and talk about that stuff. But in the meantime, Creston is a town by nature. And that's all. That's it.
I think one of my favorite comments was that we all come from the Creston Valley. And when we see people coming here far away for films here, they don't just experience the town. They look around and they experience the valley. And I think I like that idea that we're all from the Creston Valley, and it makes everybody feel included. And everybody here is from the Creston Valley. We live in a valley. And I think we need to maybe bring that more to the forefront, that we're all part of this valley rather than just the town or city of Creston, because the two are so connected here. And the community of Erickson is also so connected to us that if you take that population, we've surpassed the city size a long time ago, but there's still that boundary there. And that's why it's simply we live in the valley, whether we're in the town of Creston or out in Canyon, Lister, or anywhere in this valley. And I think we all have a sense of pride in the beauty of this valley and what it has to offer. When you think of the vineyards and the agriculture here, that's all products of the Creston Valley, and we all benefit from that. So I really like that comment. I thought it was sort of really summed up where we live and how we live. So I'm glad that we've kind of settled this question for now. It was prompted by our centennial. We thought now's the time to start thinking about that. But we do have good feedback from our citizens, and I think it's valuable enough for us to make a decision. So I will read the recommendation, and that's that council receives a report titled Municipal Reclassification Survey from the Director of Corporate Services dated May 27, 2025, and the results of the 2025 Municipal Reclassification Survey. And further, that no further action respecting municipal reclassification be taken. And we say that because that's now. That doesn't mean that will never happen again, just so everybody's clear. So we're good with that?
Okay. I'm stressing that this is the biggest return on any of our surveys. Is that about, was that correct, President?
It really depends. 218 is not unheard of. No. Those.
No, I'm just saying that it's a passionate issue. In other words, people weren't sleeping through it. A number of people I spoke to were saying, well, that's either passionately no or passionately yes. I still think we need to close the loop.
So do a press release.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Just so that we're not leaving them hanging and they have no idea whether their input was valuable. So that's what that last statement was. No further action, Marianne. I think we need to to reward them, thank them for their
We could do that in our next newsletter.
We absolutely can. Yeah.
I agree. People are probably gonna wonder, well, whatever became of that, and not everyone tunes into our meeting, so.
thanks.
Good enough, everybody's happy then? Okay, happy enough. So then I would request a resolution that council rises from committee of the whole to a regular council meeting. Councilor Venus, seconded. Councilor Baldwin, in favor? Motion is carried. We'll continue with our division reports. Not a lot of them, but we'll start with corporate services and request for decision from the Director of Corporate Services regarding visitor information center lease with the Regional District of Central Kootenai.
Great, thank you so much. So this is just a final piece of housekeeping. We took over the Armitage Center last fall, and the vision for it was that it would be the permanent home of the Visitor Information Center. So since that time, I've been working with the RDCK to shore up the lease for that section. The RDCK is in agreement with the lease that is in front of you now. So it has been reviewed by MAABC and their team and our team. So if it's a 5-year lease, the rent is outlined inside there. I believe it's approximately $30,000 a year. And if you are in approval, we'll execute it and finish our final legislative responsibility around it. So just a notice in section 26 notice in our Creston Valley advance.
Okay, Councilor Houghton.
Yeah, so thank you. The lease in front of us does say that the lease agreement will take effect September 1, 2024 for 5 years to August 31, 2029. And I'm just curious, like in the report for decision that you gave us, you talk about September 1, 2025.
Oh.
For 5 years. And so I'm just wondering, is it retroactive to last year or was that just an error?
It is retroactive to last year. And then any increases begin on September 1st, 2025. So the first year there are 30,000 and then there is a CPI increase every year thereafter.
Okay. So we're signing, so that lease is a year old essentially when they're signing it. Okay, thank you. Thanks for that clarification.
Any other questions? Entertain the motion that the report title approval of lease for Visitor Information Center dated May 25th. Is that correct? Dated May 25th or should it be?
May 27th.
Okay, yeah, because May 25th was a Sunday. So May 27th, 2025, from the Director of Corporate Services, and further that council authorizes the lease between the town and the Regional District of Central Kootenai for the Visitor Information Center located at 121 Northwest Boulevard, Creston, BC, the Armitage Building, subject to completion of the disposition requirements outlined in Section 26 of the Community Charter. Motion 2, Councillor Dumas, seconded Councillor Holland. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Go on then to Community Services, request for decision from the Director of Community Services regarding Board of Variance appointments.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. I think that this was brought up at a previous meeting, so it's just that council is required by the Local Government Act to establish and maintain a Board of Variance every 3 years, and staff are recommending Linda Hard, Don Tarrant, and Dee Howard to serve on the Board of Variance for a 3-year term from 2025 to 2028.
Yep, we went through that and decided it, so we'll just affirm that by motion then, that the report titled appointment of board variance dated May 27th, 2025 from the Director of Community Services be received, and further that council appoints Linda Hart, Don Tarrant, and Dee Howard to the Board of Variance for a 3-year term commencing on May 27th, 2025 and concluding May 27th, 2028. Motion 2, Councillor Eisler. Second, Councillor Baldwin. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. And we have some recommendations from Committee of the Whole. The recommendations 1 to 4 from the regular Committee of the Whole held on May 13th, 2025 be adopted as follows. Recommendation 1, that the council receives a report regarding support for survivors of sexual crimes working group from the Director of Protective Services, and further that council directs staff to prepare a request for decision regarding support for survivals of sexual crimes working group for council consideration and upcoming regular council meeting. Recommendation 2, that council receives the council direction request titled rezoning application 1620 Hood Road for information. And further, that council refer the application to staff to request that the applicant withdraw their zoning amendment application for 1620 Hood Road and resubmit their proposal inclusive of official community plan and zoning amendment application and a development variance permit application for council consideration at an upcoming meeting. Recommendation 3, that council receives the May 13th, 2025 council direction request titled Street Closure Request Color Run for information from the Director of Community Services. And further, that council directs staff to prepare a request for decision regarding the street closure request for council decision at an upcoming meeting. And finally, recommendation 4, council receives the report titled Council Coffee Talks dated May 13th, 2025 from the Director of Corporate Services. And further, that council directs staff to proceed with the implementation of council coffee talks. So that's a big one. Who's going to move it? Councilor Dumas, second to Councilor Holland. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We have some correspondence here. First one is Cops for Kids sponsoring request, and that's council authorization of sponsorship of an amount for us to determine to Cops for Kids.
So last year, your worship, we donated $500 to Cops for Kids from council's advertising budget.
Okay. Someone like to move the same thing?
I'll move $500 from the advertising budget.
Okay, that's moved by Councilor Baldwin, seconded by Councilor Houghton. Discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We have several pieces here of receipt for information. I'll read the motion because they're all included there, I think. The motion is that council receives the following correspondence. Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General response to correspondence regarding border security and Okanagan Nation Alliance regarding SELEC's Okanagan briefing package for local governments on U.S.-based tribes asserting rights and interests in Arrow Lakes and Kootenay boundary regions of Canada. Royal Canadian Army Cadets 68th Annual Ceremonial Review Invitation. Union of BC Municipalities regarding the 2025 AK BLG resolutions. North Coast Regional District correspondence to BC Utilities Commission regarding Pacific Northern Gas proposal, increase of natural gas delivery rates. So after we've received these, I'll just have a couple of questions, or at least one regarding that. So Councilor Houghton, you're making a motion?
Yeah, I have some questions as well before we pass this.
Okay, well, first we're going to move her and second her. So you want to move it?
I'll move it, sure.
Okay, seconded by Councilor Aries. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to talk about the response from the Deputy Solicitor General's letter. And so thank you for sending that off. And that was like in response to our conversation back in December. But in that letter, it talks about this really needing to be addressed at the federal level. And so coincidentally had a conversation with Rob Morrison and extended an invitation to him to come to council, but he shared that he'd also spoken with the mayor. But that is a topic that he brought up to me that would be of interest to him to speak with council. So just curious, do we proceed forward by having that conversation with Rob or redirecting these concerns to the federal government?
I think we'd probably want to do both, correct, Mike?
Well, I mean, this is really, you really need to get into the staff level of this conversation. A sitting member of parliament that's not even in government, they can take the message to Ottawa, but so I think, we do have to make sure it gets through into the RCMP through the organization at a staff level, I think is where you want to push a little bit. And certainly I think there's a lot of at the federal level, I think there's a lot of plans and I, the newly elected government and I think the other parties that were running as well, had various different ideas for, border security, considering, the issues related to trade and all sorts of stuff. So, I think that's probably our best avenue is try to, if from a political standpoint, is it would be to the Minister of Public Safety at a federal level and to our CP staff.
Right. And right.
I'm not discounting that council shouldn't lobby their local MP either, but I'm just trying to think of where, from an effort standpoint, is we really need to get to government and to the RCMP on our concerns.
Right. And does the mayor's, I'm not going to say the title correctly, but the Border Communities Mayoral Alliance have some influence with this?
I would say not really. It's more about tariffs. We support the need for higher border security, but I don't think that we've had a resolution come out of that to push it forward. But we realize that would be beneficial to increase border security. So I think probably through individual councils that has filtered forward, and maybe we need to strengthen that with the resolution. And just regarding your point about our MP Rob Morrison, when I saw him at Blossom Festival, I said, you're welcome to, when you're in town, to come to a council meeting and address us just as an MP, and because he really hasn't done that yet. And so we would welcome him to do that. So he said he would. So I hope that we get enough notice that it's not a surprise to us that he's coming, and we can add him to our agenda for his input or presentation to us. So we'll stay tuned for that. And the other part of the public safety and Solicitor General response is our concern about policing in our community. And we will still be trying to move forward with the meeting with the minister to address that part of it, because it was addressed in the correspondence as well. So we don't want to let that lie. We worked hard to inform them of our needs here, and we still need to move that forward. So we will continue with that part of it. The other piece of correspondence we have there is the Royal Canadian Army Cadets ceremonial review invitation. And it's one that I likely won't be able to go to. So they're asking if somebody could go to that. So I don't know if we have a volunteer from our council that would attend. Carolyn, you'll do it?
Yeah, I went last year. It's great. And I'm happy to go again unless somebody else wants to step in.
I can be your alternate. How's that? If you can't, I will do it.
Yeah. We could
Jeez.
probably both go, and they'd be happy to have both of us there.
Human pyramid. There
Yep.
you go. And why don't we just do that? Because it's not far. It's just down that the LKB. So
Thank
So,
you.
we'll both.
The date and location is on the correspondence, so you'll see it accordingly.
Yeah.
And so, we will just accept that as correspondence then. So, the motion had been made, I believe.
The one thing I wanted to ask about was the Okanagan Nation Alliance. I mean, that's pretty major news. Do we have any other context? Are we the only area of BC that might be affected by US based tribes? I mean, this was out of the blue, but I mean, in the environment with President Trump and everything like that, trying to destabilize as much as possible. To me, this seems like major news that we're sort of going, maybe I'm misinterpreting it.
I think this has been news for quite some time. Like the court ruling that took place that they were referring to took place a number of years ago now. I think they're just, I think the nation is just sending that out there to sort of provide information about their position. I mean, we also know like our local Yakinuki are not supportive of, and have a very similar position in terms of that. So
nothing to worry about is what you're saying.
Well, I think it's just information. I mean, it's all information, and as time goes on, and I'm sure there'll be more developments over time. So when something's sent to council, I think it's important that everybody gets it and we report it as part of the public record.
Yeah.
And that's why we're just saying it's received for information. I don't think there's a decision to be made.
No, I get that.
It's and I don't know enough about the issue to, I would just take it that that's clearly their position on how they view things.
Just so you know, I have more involvement in that than you think I have, because the Desatel court decision was a decision that I worked on, and I took this statement from Mr. Desatel that got to the court decision that allowed him to hunt out in British Columbia. So he was a fine gentleman who felt that this was his right, and he had reported himself for several years, but our prosecutors knew that this would be a lengthy court case, and they weren't sure they wanted to go there. So they did go take this to court. He won that because they originated from Canada. And so they included Canada as part of his traditional hunting territory. The decision basically endorses Colville Confederated Tribes to hunt in Canada because historically they did that. Anything over and above that, I think, is what the Okanagan Nation is concerned about. But I really think that that going forward, if they disagree with the way this is headed, they'll probably have to challenge that in court as well and come up with a court decision. And so they stated their concerns and how it's not just the Colville Confederated Tribes, but it's other tribes that border Canada. So it may turn into something larger eventually. And again, this was established by court. And I think how you sort this out will probably ultimately have to go to court, no matter what their concerns are. So it's not over. I think it's still beginning. So Councillor Houghton, you had your hand up earlier?
Well, I was just going to say maybe this is a conversation down the road that we might want to have with the Lower Kootenay Band, just from an information perspective. It does, it talks about if anything is asked of you as a counselor, like to step away from that conversation. And so it seems to me that there's a really strong relationship between the bands that are in Montana and Idaho with the Tanaha Nation. So maybe they have a different perspective that would be worthwhile to know.
Yeah, I think uniquely the Colville Confederated Tribe is probably the only known part of their nations to come back to Canada to hunt for sustenance, and we don't know if that will increase or not, but our Lower Kootenay Band certainly has the connections with the Kootenay tribes in Idaho. So, and maybe unbeknownst to us, they do come for sustenance. I don't know, but people will profile anyhow. So just wanted to wrap up that motion with an all in favor. That motion is carried. Well, just a couple of other items that are correspondence that I put in as late items. And the first one is from UBCM, the email for cabinet minister meetings. So there's a deadline of June 2nd for booking the appointments for either cabinet ministers or provincial government staff meeting requests. And so I think we have a few already, Mike. I don't know if we have all of the ones that we would book so far.
So ones that I have heard through conversation, usually we meet with Modi, we have for several years, so we imagine that's not going to stop. We typically meet with Public Safety and Solicitor General and continue advocating. Last year, we had asked to speak with the Minister of Health and got rerouted to the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction. And that was to ask for increased resources for rural areas and mental health supports. So that has come up quite a few times. We have that on the list as well. And then also Ministry of Health, but at a staff level to see if we can connect with them there again to advocate for physician recruitment and some other pieces. Is there anything? Mental health. Okay.
I'm just seeking input from council on, since we are putting forth another resolution on library funding that's coming from our community, whether we would want to wrap that into a meeting with the Minister of Municipal Affairs, because I do think we have a bit more reason to be asking for library funding, and other communities are doing it. And maybe we could discuss the fact that this has gone on for so long with so many resolutions to see if there's any way we can move that forward besides just having an endorsed resolution. So if council is in agreement, then I think we should request that.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll bring in the motion.
Yeah. Since we do have the resolution. Okay. So
I think the other one we were chatting about with how was Minister of Housing.
That's correct. Yeah, Minister of Housing regarding our housing corporation and what more they can do to help us, because we we're looking for money, we're looking for support. They talk housing. We can ask them, what have you done for us lately?
Good idea.
That'll go well.
Help us help you.
So yeah, if we could have those added to that, that would be great. That's more meetings than usual, but we have reason to meet with them, so I think. we should-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just as an aside, they take, we might not get all of our meetings, they reroute, but we put all the requests in and see where it falls.
Thanks.
Is there value? So last year, the Ministry of Health, we actually were told no, but that we could meet with IH. But in the end, we met with PHSA, which was even less helpful than had it been IH. Is there a way to circumvent that and make sure we don't get pushed to an organization that can do absolutely nothing? Like, do we request a meeting with IH sooner?
We can put in the request. The result is what it is. I think that if we get pushed to public health again, what I would do is suggest canceling the meeting. There's obviously lots to try to attack that in a different manner. Because the other thing is with the meetings and your advocacy at UBCM, I always refer to it as speed dating because you get 15 minutes and you don't really get. So if we really do have an issue that we feel that we want to put some time and effort into, say with Interior Health, there's nothing saying that we can't put a package together and, 3 or 4 of us get in a vehicle and go to Kelowna and meet with them there and, set up an hour or 2 meeting. Because that 15 minutes, they're great for if you already have something in front of them and say, hey, don't forget about us. When we meet with the Minister of Transportation, we've had upwards and over the last 20 years, 70 some meetings with highways. So when we walk in and say, don't forget about us, they got a lot of information to go with that. So I guess it just depends. Maybe we should flush out a little bit of what our ask is. And if it's really with Interior Health, maybe forego the meeting at UBCM, especially if we don't get it. It's all right to have the meeting, but understand what you'll get in 15 minutes is not a lot. And if we really feel that we have something to advocate for, we can set up a meeting in Kelowna or even a Skype meeting with council and their staff online. Like there's a few ways we could do.
Yep.
Like I do think if we look at Ministry of Health, physician recruitment is a really good conversation to have with the minister because the programming that's set up is too generic and it actually pushes physicians out of rural recruitment and into bigger centers where there is a bigger perceived demand. But I do think the mental health issues and even like continuing to push for those beds at Crestview Care Village and getting some funding for long-term care beds because we are under-resourced per capita based on our demographics. And those are decisions at the IH level. So that's where we could need to take those.
So, I was just going to ask, that's the funding for the care facility would be under IH though, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just traditionally getting a meeting with the Minister of Health at UBCM is like winning a date with a unicorn. It's tough. Because they, first off, if they make any time available, their time's booked up just instantaneously. And of course, they go with the biggest issues they can. And one of the things that I've been told, is they do push a lot of refer a lot back to the health authorities anyhow, because that's the health structure is that, they treat themselves as their policy makers, little decision makers. And the health authorities actually do we give them funding, we give them the policy, it's up to them for implementation. So it might be best that we plan a more targeted approach with Interior Health and set up a meeting with them throughout the year, perhaps.
I agree.
And the second thing I wanted to draw your attention to is every week or two now in summer, I get an invitation for mayors and RD chairs for a technical briefing of basically the fire hazards and flood hazards and all the things that the province updates communities on. So I put out an email to council because I can't make the one this Friday from 1:30 to 2:15. And Councillor Dumas has volunteered to take this one. And so the link is on there. But I'm wondering if the rest of council, if I can't make it, if anyone else is interested, because we could do it on a rotational basis. So I'm not excluding people from it. So just feedback on that is if the next one, someone else wants to do.
We're here to help.
I'm
We're here to support you.
Yeah.
We're
Okay,
there.
so next time I will then put out again, just an email to council and, we'll choose someone else. Yeah.
Sure.
And then
Sounds good.
appreciate just a briefing from that meeting, so we know what it was about and how it impacts us here, so, yeah. Okay, thanks, that's all I needed from that. I don't know, do we need a motion to cover those two things or not?
I think so.
Okay.
No, I
Good.
forgot what I need, yeah.
Okay. Our acting mayor schedule is June, Councillor Houghton, July, Councillor Holland, August, Councillor Aries, September, Councillor Baldwin, and so on and so forth. So before we go, we have time for questions from the gallery. Any questions? Jessica, go ahead.
May I offer some information for the Rotary Millennium Park business and then make an introduction?
Yes.
Awesome. I was speaking with Dylan from Rotary, and the increases for the event is that there's 2 more breweries than there was last year and more washrooms and hopefully sunshine. Otherwise, the time and everything is the same. So I just
Cool.
piece of information from Rotary.
Just bringing in more thirsty people, that's all.
Yeah. And then I wanted to introduce Madeline Tribble. Hi, I'm saying her name right. Yeah. She is our youth business ambassador, our summer student with us.
Awesome.
So you'll see her out and about. If I'm not there, she'll be there in events and business. So
Awesome.
Cool.
I just wanted
Welcome, Madeline.
to spotlight.
Are you from Creston?
No, I'm actually originally from Ontario, but in 2020 moved to Caswell, and then I kind of lived in the Kootenays for a while, and then I realized Creston was like great. So
Nice.
yeah, I just recently moved here.
So you're from Creston now?
Yeah.
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 Good. Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you. Awesome.
Okay, having said that, we will move to a closed meeting and motion that the regular council meeting of May 27th, 2025 be recessed at 5:05. And by the authority of the Community Charter, council move to a closed council meeting, with this meeting being closed from the public and or news media pursuant to 90 sub 1 sub C under labor relations. So motion 2, Councillor Lewis, second Councillor Aries, all in favor? Motion is carried. And so we'll just take a 5-minute recess and clear the gallery.
Okay.
Do you need me to log back in?
Yes, please. There should be the second link in that email, and I'm just gonna Yeah.